The Walt Disney Company, under the direction of Roy Disney, began construction on the Magic Kingdom in 1967, shortly after the death of Walt Disney. Not including the 2 resort hotels and campground that also opened in 1971, the construction of Disney's second Castle Park would cost upwards of $330 million to construct and take over 5 years to complete. The choice was made to build Florida's Magic Kingdom on a northern part of the giant property connected by an 8-mile stretch of road that takes guests through the forest and swamp that make up the giant property. The anticipation that builds with each passing tree is not a coincidence. It's anticipation by design. From the iconic Disney World entrance sign, it takes about 10 minutes to arrive and park at what the Imagineers named the Ticket and Transportation Center. Park, then take a tram to the shores of the Seven Seas Lagoon, where you have more transportation options to choose from. Those who arrive extra early might opt for the leisurely ferry boat that makes its way across the man-made lagoon several times each hour. Most, however, will take the iconic Disney monorail for an express journey around. Almost a half hour since passing under the Disney World welcome sign and still no castle in sight. Even as the monorail leaves its station, looking out the window, you will see only trees. The park gives its guests a quick peek and hello from across the water before the highway in the sky takes you inside the modern atrium of the contemporary resort. With so much to see, and guided by the sound of the monorail announcer narrating the journey, the park experience has already begun. After what must seem like an eternity to a first-timer or visiting child, the monorail re-emerges from the hotel and rounds a bend. The Magic Kingdom is now on full display before disappearing a final time behind the Main Street Railroad station. Finally, guests can walk through the park gates beneath the station into a tunnel, and Town Square reveals herself. Once through, guests are immersed in a turn-of-the-century American town with the sights, sounds, and smells of the USA just after the birth of electricity. The luxury of size the Magic Kingdom had allowed for many improvements in its design, and like the rest of the park, the layout of Main Street was built similar to Disneyland's, but on a grander scale. A longer, wider Main Street leads towards a larger hub and a taller, more Gothic Disney castle. The architecture itself comes from a variety of places, but is most heavily influenced by 2 American regions. Marceline, Missouri, a brief but influential home to Walt and his brother, and Fort Collins, Colorado, home to Imagineer Harper Goff, responsible for several of Disneyland's Main Street fronts, which greatly influenced the design of Florida's version as well. While there are only 4 actual buildings that make up the many shops and eateries along Main Street, each are made up of several ornate and detailed storefronts. Masters of the use of forced perspective, the Imagineers created 3- and 4-storied buildings out of minimal space. Like the Main Street Railroad, for example. It's modeled after the real turn-of-the-century train station that once existed in Saratoga Springs, New York. The station, now symmetrical, sits over 2 stories high atop the iconic floral arrangement that greets each guest as they enter the park. To get to one of the steam engine trains that circles the park on any given day, you must climb the circular staircase from Town Square and board from the 2nd floor. When it opened in 1971, only round-trip rides that lasted about 20 minutes were available, as Main Street was home to the only train station in the park, until Frontierland Station opened the following year in preparation for the proposed Thunder Mesa project that was planned at the time. Roger Broggie, a close friend of Walt's, gets credited as being the first Imagineer. It was he who had overseen the building of Disneyland Railroad and was asked to do the same for the Magic Kingdoms. He ultimately bought 4 locomotives for about $8,000 each from a railroad boneyard in Yucatan, Mexico. The general idea for the restoration was to make them appear as if they were built in the 1880s. The trains were completed in 2 months and became one of the most popular steam-powered railroads in the world, carrying 3.7 million passengers each year. Walt saw his parks as a movie in action. His employees weren't just paid staff, but cast members in a production, and Main Street was in opening credits for the designers who served in its production. Look closely, in fact, and you will find the names of Imagineers hidden in the second and third story windows that bear the names of fictional businesses, but the very real names of significant people connected to the development of the Walt Disney World Resort. On opening day, Main Street U.S.A. contained a bookstore, camera shop, bakery, toy shop, penny arcade, tobacco shop, cinema, house of magic, and flower shop, all of which are closed today. The essence of the Main Street that came on opening day has much been lost, greatly changing the way guests experience the land today. Though the outside of Main Street has changed little, inside the stores, guests are quickly reminded what year it really is, and the real genius of Walt's Main Street concept: to tempt guests into spending more money. Most guests do not mind having not known the area as it used to be, though. Main Street USA is far more than a glorified shopping mall, the storefronts themselves not the only draw. The City Hall, Harmony Barbershop, fire station, and carriage rides are still an option to add to the turn-of-the-century atmosphere. With no better backdrop for the parades, street entertainers, and fireworks that still happen each day. Take in the detail of what makes Disney parks so unique as you take a stroll, horse-drawn carriage, or vintage vehicle through to the open central plaza nestled on a riverbed moat that hugs the park jewel, Cinderella Castle.